woman in the high tower.
Am I really doing this?
Franklin looked out across the water at the imposing sight of the blocks. The neglected towers looming over the river as the sun slowly began to sink. He stepped back, leaning against the brickwork of the wall behind him as he considered his options. His family were watched and seemed eager to forget him. Whatever the men in suits were, he knew he could not hope to hide from them forever without help. The thought crossed his mind to go back to the authorities, but he dismissed it quickly. Even without his abilities to consider, he was a fugitive. A deserted penal legionary, no less. At best, he could only hope they would lock him away. But given what he'd become, he could scarce bring himself to contemplate what might happen should the worst come to pass.
Come on, Frank. Better to do this with company.
He resolved himself, glancing down to his hand as he willed it to disappear. At once the tingling sensation played over his fingers, and the limb slowly faded from view. He sighed again, allowing the sensation to fade. He could vanish at will, but even he had no escape. Another need quickly made itself apparent as his stomach ached. With a determined step, he moved out from the darkening alley, shrouding himself as he made his way over the footbridge that spanned the waters, making his way towards the one place that had offered him sanctuary. He frowned as he saw police up ahead, a pair of officers murmuring to one another as he slipped past them unseen beneath the shroud of distorted light. Their presence unnerved him, and he moved faster through the winding streets, coming at last to the edge of the greenery and broken concrete that marked the edge of the blocks.
Leave him alone! Come on, Dave! Let's get you back upstairs!
Franklin frowned as he recognized the voice, turning the corner to see the young lad that had dragged him from the river, standing his ground against a chuckling group of thugs. Beside him was an old man dressed in a tattered and filthy coat, muttering incessantly as he busied himself trying to pick up the contents of a spilled plastic bag.
You should watch yourself, kid. No one's going to give a crap about a street run and some mad old hobo.
Come on, Dave!
But I have to wait for my mother. She said she'd come back for me.
I'm sorry, Dave. She's no coming. You know that already. Come on, I'll get you a cup of tea.
My mummy said she'd come back for me. You're not my mother.
Old man's a fucking nut job. Hey, Case, many more nutters you got in there?
Dave, we can't stay here.
I want my mother. She said she'd come back for me.
Chuckling among themselves, one of the thugs darted forward, snatching a photo the old man clutched desperately from him, and sneering mockingly with the others as the old man grasped for it.
Mine. Give it to me. Give it back.
Hey, give that back! He's got dementia, you asshole! Leave him alone!
Case tried to grab the photo, but another of the thugs stepped forward to hold out a wicked, multi-bladed knife towards him threateningly.
Come on, Case. Come get it if you want to help him. Just give me the excuse.
The thug with the photo smirked cruelly, withdrawing a lighter from his pocket as he teased the photo over its flame.
Come on, old man. Off your mum's hot stuff.
Even as the flames started to take hold, the lighter suddenly extinguished, blown out by an unseen wind. The thug frowned, snapping the flame back, only for it once again to gutter and die. Before the thug could speak, the lighter was slapped from his hand, and a ghostly distorted shimmer punched forward. The thug fell back, his face a bloody mess, as the others immediately leapt to their feet. Case reacted at once to the one before him that still held his blade threateningly. The moment's distraction was all it took, and Case shoved the blade aside before landing 3 heavy body blows.
Get out of here!
The thugs looked around in panic, waving their weapons at an unseen foe. Another of them suddenly fell backwards. Their legs swept out from under them as they landed badly against the concrete. The other slashed forward, waving wildly with a machete-like blade. The weapon whistled as it cut the air, only for it to suddenly stop in mid-swing as though lodged in a lump of wood. The air shimmered, and Franklin's armoured form emerged from nothing like a battered, ghostly knight. The weapon was held impossibly in the grip of nothing, a shimmer of force in the air holding it in place until Franklin spun and slammed his gauntleted fist into the thug's cheek.
Go!
The thugs needed no further encouragement, scrambling for the safety of the streetlights beyond the tatty borders of the disused car park.
I didn't think we'd see you again.
I guess I need your help after all.
Yeah, well, as you can see...
He scooped up the damaged photo, stepping over to Dave, and gently offering it back to him.
There you go. The last couple of days haven't exactly improved much for the rest of us.
That normal?
The gangs? Pretty much. At least 5 or 6 working around here. Tough wars, drugs, vandalism. We just got stuck in the middle of it, while the suits keep encouraging those bastards to make our lives miserable.
The mention of suits reminded Franklin why he needed the help, and taking a deep breath, he resigned himself to the course.
Let me help you. I've got nowhere to go now, and you pulled me out of the river, it's the least I can do.
You're not wrong, but it isn't my choice.
Toby, then.
Come on. We better get upstairs before the next batch of bastards arrives.
Picking their way through the debris, they worked their way up the stairs, Case passing greeting to the group of young men that guarded the stairwell. Franklin followed warily, taking in his surroundings as they made their way higher. The old office blocks were surprisingly sheltered considering their appearance, the corridors and frequent fire doors helping to keep the worst of the drafts from chilling the halls. Dozens of homeless had made their homes here, scattered spaciously around the floors, some huddled in groups chattering among themselves, while others busied themselves with makeshift repair work on the decaying walls. Dim lights filled the building, kept running by the rumbling old solar generators that grumbled and rattled with old age and overuse.
We're here!
Case stopped at the top of a lonely corridor several floors up. A pair of large fire doors awaited them just ahead, and Franklin could make out the silhouettes of dimly lit figures through the cracked glass windows.
What was...
He turned down the corridor to see a large black dog watching them from the far end. It stood silently, ember eyes glowing. Franklin turned to Case, about to say something before he glanced back only to see the dog had vanished without a trace.
That you, Case?
Hey, Kay! It's not just me.
Franklin followed after him, looking around the open floor at the 20 or so people gathered inside. All eyes fell upon him as he stood there still dressed in his battered armor, and he swallowed as he gingerly placed his helmet to one side.
Hi?
You came back!
Decided you liked it better here after all then.
I guess I just couldn't keep away.
Toby smiled, walking towards him with open arms before clasping his hands about Franklin's own. Franklin returned the smile awkwardly.
So, what now?
Welcome to the family. Kay, got any fun of spaceman somewhere to stay?
Sure thing, Dad.
Salmon, wasn't it?
Frank, though most call me Fish.
Alright, the last here will get you set up. Settle yourself in, there's plenty of space here. We'll talk about what we're going to do in the morning.
She led him through the aging corridors, casting idle chatter as she did so. He ignored her, or smiled politely for the most part, too tired to make easy conversation.
I'm guessing you'd rather have your own space. Can't imagine a lot of the folks here trust you to stay too close by. No offence meant, of course. But you aren't exactly the most welcoming looking person.
That's hardly fair. They can see right through me.
Kayleigh frowned and then smiled, unsure if he had meant that as a joke or not.
Here you are. This room should do nicely for now. Nice and isolated. It's too drafty up here for the lot of the folks downstairs. Just make yourself at home.
Franklin peered past the door as she pushed it aside, revealing a wide, open-plan office, still bedecked with long, forgotten pieces of furniture. Cracked windows reflected the waning light strangely, and he took a deep breath of the stale air within as he contemplated his new home. He was about to enter when he stopped and froze, looking off towards the right as his gaze followed the corridor that ran around the edge of the room to its furthest corner.
What's wrong? Looks like you've seen a ghost.
He said nothing for a moment, his gaze fixed instead on the large black dog that waited at the far end of the corridor. The animal's ember eyes caught his own gaze in total silence, until finally the animal simply stood and walked through an open door.
Did you see that?
See what?
The dog. A massive great black dog, just there.
Well, Old Man Huskins keeps some dogs downstairs. Maybe it's one of his. I didn't see anything.
Franklin frowned and strode down the corridor, stopping at the open door the dog had left through. There was no sign of the animal, and beyond the door was a lonely-looking stairwell through which the wind howled quietly.
You alright, spaceman?
It went up here.
She frowned in concern, and Franklin immediately picked up on the change in her demeanour.
What's up there?
That leads up to the 60th. The Pigeon Lady.
Pigeon Lady?
She was the one who told me we'd find you. She's a weird one, but if you're seeing things taking you up there, she wants to see you.
Franklin scowled, instantly dismissive of the mystical tone the girl had taken. But as he looked back up the stairwell, there was a feeling of being drawn, a pull against him that urged him on. With a deep sigh, he took the first step. Kayleigh didn't follow, and Franklin continued to climb, following the crumbling concrete stairs up towards the 60th floor. Time seemed to pass strangely, as though half forgotten like a dream. Even as he climbed, he felt his stamina flagging, but his determination kept him going, and as he focused, he found his steps becoming more like bounds. It was dark by the time he reached the 60th floor, and the broken door ahead of him easily shoved aside to allow him into the windswept room beyond. Like the ones below, it was a wide, open office, but unlike the others, this one had been swept clean of all furniture, and the windows were completely smashed. Feathers covered the floor, and the wind whistled and rattled the rusting frames. Pigeons were everywhere, lining the window frames in quiet ranks, like the audience of an arena. Franklin turned at once to see the large black dog sitting on the floor, a short distance beside him.
You're quite safe. He does not bite without instruction.
He looked back again across the open floor, surprised to see a single old woman standing in the middle of the floor, warming herself against a small fire that he had been certain had not been there before. The woman was dressed warmly in rags and tattered coats, a mismatch of colours that gave her a garish appearance, tainted with bird droppings. She smiled pleasantly, patting a bird by the fire affectionately before stepping toward him.
Who are you?
That doesn't really matter. I'd say the more important question for you to answer now is, who are you?
That dog, I saw it earlier.
Yes, he is loyal, faithful, observant. We can all do to be more like him.
She reached into her pockets as she stepped towards the broken windows, seemingly oblivious to the gaping abyss just beyond them, as she withdrew her hand to reveal a handful of stale bread. With great affection she gave the birds the bread, patting them and sharing in their bounty as she chewed on the mouldy piece herself.
I forget my manners. Would you like some?
I'll pass, thanks.
Yes, you do that quite a lot, don't you? So tell me, what do you want?
What do I want?
Oh no, you didn't want that. You didn't come here just for want of answers.
Franklin looked at her confused, thrown by the random assumption of her response.
I didn't say anything.
Did you have to?
Okay, I'm going to go now.
You want your family, and you want to know what is happening to you. I imagine you want to know why I know that. But none of these things are what you need.
And you know what I need?
Franklin found himself backing away, only to realize he had moved away from the door to find the broken window at his back.
And what do I need?
Purpose.
I want to go home.
Do not confuse purpose with desire. You are here for a reason. You are a shield.
For who? The people downstairs?
There are a lot of people downstairs, and they, like you, have need. You've seen it yourself.
They seem capable enough to me they can handle themselves.
But can you?
I think I can handle a few thugs.
And what of the others?
She smiled almost cruelly as Franklin's thoughts turned to the men in suits.
There is a fire coming, Shield. You'll need more than to simply hide from it.
I guess you know what I need then.
She stepped forward almost challengingly, and Franklin found himself stepping back by reflex, coming to the very edge of the window as the pigeons flapped about him.
Yes, you need to learn to fly.
Before he could speak, a sudden rush of birds piled towards him, flapping all around and pushing him back. Before he knew it, he was at the very precipice of the window, 60 floors of open air falling below him.
Jump.
You're insane.
Jump, you fool.
He turned back to see the giant black dog rise, snarling and baring its teeth before charging him like some kind of demon. With but moments to spare, all thoughts drained from him, and instinct pushed his feet away from the pigeon-stained carpets. He fell into the dark. It was as though he were back on the moon. He did not fall, he soared, sweeping impossibly across the vast expanse of open space between the 3 towers as he slowly but steadily slid through the air. Horror turned to astonishment before turning to wonder. He controlled his descent, turning his feet forward as he fell toward the great hub that connected the walkways between the 3 towers. Despite the speed of his fall, the impact seemed no worse than if he had merely jumped onto a trampoline, and with a cry of astonished joy, he pushed away to leap again out towards one of the other towers. The wind rushed past him, and he pushed again as he came into contact with the wall, jumping out across the open void as he slowly zigzagged down towards the ground. Finally coming to rest, he landed amidst the overgrown gardens at the center of the tower's plaza, rolling to a gentle stop and picking himself up to look in disbelief at the heights from which he'd fallen. The noise of the cruel laughter drew his attention, and he saw another group of thugs busy throwing rocks at the higher windows. They hadn't seemed to notice him, and he realized he was no longer visible, the veil drawn over him without thinking. For a moment he considered turning away, but something drew his gaze up again.
A shield. Alright, old woman. A shield it is.
With that, he strode towards the unsuspecting gang.